guys, welcome back. It's video 2 in our Homeschool Bravely series. Alright guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I am Laura Wilkie with Down Home with Lemon Pie, and I am excited to be going through the 4th book on my channel, Homeschool Bravely. If you've missed any of the books I have gone through already, they are all so good. They will be a blessing to you. They are linked below. I do recommend you check them out. They're also in their own individual playlist on my channel, so they're super easy to find. There's M is for Mama, which is all about being a mom, motherhood. It is rough. It is all about that. God schooling, very similar to Homeschool Bravely. You will see a lot of the similar things. So if you're enjoying this one, go check out that one as well. That's the one that kind of kick-started this whole trend of doing these books for you guys. And then most recently, before this one, I did a book that is all about homemaking. It is called The Hidden Art of Homemaking. It's an older book, and it is so rich with truths and goodness. So if you've missed any of those, go back and check them out. In the meantime, we are going through right now Homeschool Bravely. It is by Jamie Erickson. As always, I do encourage you guys to get your own copy. It's not very much. I want to say like between $10 and $15. I got mine on Amazon. You can get yours wherever your favorite place to buy books is. But do support this author, Jamie Erickson, who actually did this work. I'm just kind of flipping through the book, guys. I'm touching on the high points, but I am not hitting every single point. And you know what? In the end, it's good to have this on your shelf, to have these books on your shelf, because you can go back and reference them. I do call them my highlighter book. I keep a highlighter ready to go, and I go through them and I highlight as we go. So it's so good. But today we're going to focus on chapter 2, and this is Homeschool Bravely, How to Squash Doubt, Trust God, and Teach Your Child with Confidence. So let's look at chapter 2. Last week we talked about chapter 1. It was checking the wrong box. And this week we are still in, she has this book divided into sections. So this is part 1 is this section. There's 3 sections in this book, and this one is called The Fear. So this is chapters 1 through 4. We'll be discussing the fear of homeschooling and how it can get us. So this is chapter 2. It's part of that section, and it is called Calling or Confidence. I love this. This is a tricky chapter because so many people think, they are in more of control of their lives than they actually are. They don't see God as, especially if you're not saved Christian. And I think most of all my viewers are saved Christians, but if you're not, sometimes you don't realize the things that have happened in your life are God's guidance. Even if you don't believe in him, he's still there loving us. And that's basically what this whole chapter is kind of touching on. So she says, sometimes you think your life looks nothing like the pretty photo on the cover of the curriculum catalog, which surely must mean you're doing something wrong, right? I would go on to say it doesn't look like social media posts. It doesn't look like blog posts, this, that, or whatever. It's true. It's true. When my kids were really young, and I would take pictures of the kids doing this or that, one of my friends contacted me privately and said, "Why does your house always look so clean? My kids are around the same age as yours, and I am struggling to keep the house cleaned." And so I took a picture of, I just went around my house and showed her pictures, real life pictures of what my house looked like at that moment. And I explained to her that when I share a photo on social media, I typically share the good part. Okay? It's not that I don't want to be real and truthful, but in all honesty, we just don't like air out everything, right? So typically, when I go to take a picture of my kid, I might say something like, "Hey, let's shift a little bit this way so we don't have the trash can in the background." Why? Because we just don't always want those things in our photos or in our memories, And yes, they are real life. No, I don't do it every time. But Yes, I want to remember the beauty of homeschool, the beautiful parts of it, or even of our lives. And so, yes, we will tend to kind of edit those even naturally. I'm not talking about going in and, physically removing parts of a photo or something like that. But, that's just what we want to remember. And so, yeah, it is, but there is real life there too. There is laundry on the couch or what have you, dishes, out or whatever. So, your life's not going to look like the cover of this, that, or whatever. And, I get so many people that tell me that's why they love my homeschool channel, is because they say, I feel like you're doing it more real. It's not like a show. And I hope so, because that is a goal of mine. But again, it's not even going to always be perfect. I mean, like, look at these Christmas lights. My kids hung those. They were being cute and fun for mom and dad, and they hung us lights. They're not even straight. Look, they're not even straight. That's okay. And I didn't change it for this video. I think they were like that last video too. So, and they'll probably be like that next video, just saying. So, yeah, there are things. Okay, so she goes on to say, she says, while I love homeschooling, I don't always like it. The days are long. The work is thankless for the most part. The physical and mental investment is way above my pay grade, or at least that's the yarn I'm tempted to spin on the hard days. Yeah, I really like this little quote she has at the middle of this page on page 20. I've been so busy nurturing chaos. She goes on to say that I'm not really sure when I've last washed my hair, but I feel like I just need that on a t-shirt. I'm so busy nurturing chaos. I love that phrase, nurturing chaos, because that's what we as moms do. We nurture our families, but often they are a little chaotic. And for some reason, we don't want to talk about that or admit that, or we do in the opposite way. That they talked about this in the M is for Mama book. We do as a, like, yeah, our lives are chaos too, and like almost like a fist pump to your friend that, you're both kind of not great. And so we don't want to look at it at that either. We don't want to take it down the other side, but more of an encouragement, that, yeah, it's okay. Things aren't going to be perfect, and that's okay. But don't settle on that and let that just be your baseline, I guess. So that's kind of like a little sidetrack. Sorry about that. Let's get back to the book. Okay, going to the next part. Finding your vision, your passion for it. And she says, but some people feel God didn't call them to homeschooling. They think it was their choice or what have you. Maybe, like I said, they're not a Christian. And she goes into this long section where she talks about how God is leading and guiding our lives, and sometimes things happen that we just didn't even realize God had his hand in that until later, especially if you're not saved, because you won't recognize it always right away. But once you get saved, then you can kind of look back on your whole life and say, oh wow, I can see how this or that or whatever was guiding me to this, and it's pretty amazing. So she goes into this long section here talking about, it's really good, but I'm not going to go through it very much because this is kind of a little bit longer chapter that I want to make sure we touch on all the points. But basically talking about how God is involved, God loves us, he's in our lives, whether we want him in our lives or not. And he is helping us through these circumstances and things that are happening. So she says, most likely, God's calling for your life and the life of your kids began with the practical, everyday circumstances that he dealt to you, which is true. It's true. She says, God has orchestrated specific circumstances, so homeschooling became the clear choice. And whether you realize it or not, if you're homeschooling because of your circumstances, he's done the same for you. She's talked about several things there. So while your call to homeschool might not have come through an audible voice, if it was whispered in his providence, it's the same as his calling. You just have to grab onto that fact before you can go on one more step. So then she talks about homeschooling as being an act of worship. And, it was around this part that my yellow highlighter died, and I had to get my pink highlighter out. And I went back a little bit to kind of refresh what I had just read, and I found myself double highlighting this little passage because I found it to be profound, important, something we wanted to remember. And here it is. This is on page 25, if you want to highlight it in your book as well. But homeschooling is not my God, okay? She's talking about how homeschooling can become who you are. It can be your focus. And I've had that problem. Other people I know have had that problem. And it's good to step back and say, whoa, homeschooling is not my idol. It's not my God. It's just the work he's given me to do. And the work, when done faithfully, will always lead to worship. When I set aside my wants, my plans, my goals, and joyfully embrace the calling God has placed in my life to train my children in this short season, I am offering up wonderful praise to my King. I absolutely love that. It's so important to remember that our children are God's children first. And, you know, even myself, it's a good reminder for me too, because even myself, I have found myself where I'll do that. I'll think like they're mine and I must protect them. And, and sometimes we just have to kind of let God take that and even take our homeschool. You know, when you're picking out curriculum, sometimes you get so excited about all the different things, especially if it's a new, like for me personally, if it's a new section in history, like a new time period that we're studying, so excited about things that I want to get and I want to have and I want to do everything and I want to learn everything. And sometimes I have to remind myself that less is more. And when I take those things that I have and we start to use them, I find that more often than not, little things will start to line up that I didn't plan at all. Things will line up, they'll pair up with the different books as we're reading them. This just happened and I wrote about it on my Facebook page. So if you're not friends with me on Facebook, get on there and look. It was back in December. This just happened with our Plutarch book and it was just amazing. I wrote about it and this happens all the time, but I don't always write about it because I've noted that some people like to point it out as like, oh, it's a coincidence or this or that. And they almost, to make themselves feel better, want to like poke fun at it, I guess. And, you know, while that doesn't ultimately bother me, too much of that can get on you, right? So I don't always post about it, but I do point it out to my kids. And I'm like, wow, guys, look how that just lined up with this. And we didn't even plan that. That is awesome. And go back to my Facebook page if you want to read that story. It's really cute and short. But that's Down Home with Lemon Pie, by the way. Facebook and then Down Home with Lemon Pie. But yeah, it's really cool when we let go. I was talking about one of my viewers. Also, we personally were messaging back and forth, and I'm happy to help anybody who needs help or wants to reach out. But she had reached out, and we kind of got to talking, and it was the same kind of topic again, how God put that together, but it was the same kind of thing with letting go sometimes of what our plans or our desires are for our kids and letting God kind of take over. And she says next, homeschooling doesn't always feel worshipful. Boy, is that not the truth. But she goes on, if my days are determined, then every part of my life, even the mundane bits, have purpose and point, and that is true. Sometimes my husband always reminds me, it's the tiny steps, so we got to take small steps. And I am not that way. My personality is like, we need to go from the beginning to the end as fast as we can. And sometimes my husband has to kick back and say, whoa, we need to just take little steps and we'll get there. And it's true. It's true. We do. So it's a good reminder for me as well. Every tiny act of faithfulness I give is a chance to show my love for God through my obedience. Obeying on the difficult days can sometimes feel like drudgery, but obedience in all things is our one true demonstration of love to God and obeying in the job he gave us to homeschool, even when it doesn't look like your best friends, your next door neighbors, the person you're watching on YouTube right now, anybody you're following on social media, the homeschool catalog, what have you. Even if it doesn't look like that, it's okay. It's okay. And we have to trust God. That's what this book is all about. How to squash doubt, trust God, and teach your child with confidence. And it's true. We have to trust that God has our children and wants the best for them. And we don't know, we don't want to know what his plans are. He knows. So sometimes what we're pushing may have nothing to do with what they need to be focusing on for their future. And, I have one kiddo in particular that comes to mind in this, where I have had to let go of some very traditional things that I've done with my other kids, because it just feels like the things that he's interested in, the things that he's good at, it feels like God is pushing him a different direction, and I cannot continue to push him a different way than what God's asking him to go. So, sometimes that's the case. She says, let's see, okay, 26, page 26. It's easy to forget the still small voice of the Savior when it's being, this is so true, when it's being drowned out by sibling arguments, the tears of frustrated learners, and the awkward plunking of piano keys during music practice. And let's not forget our own inner monologue of negativity. Okay. I think I had all of those things this morning before I did this video. I'm pretty sure. I know for sure I had tears of frustrated learners. We actually haven't done piano yet, but it's coming. And then this afternoon. And then sibling arguments. Yep. So, yes. Just taking a moment. Sometimes I'll do this. It's just chaos. And sometimes it is. Let's just be honest. And I will do this. I'll just take a second and I'll go spend some time in the bathroom for a few minutes, or I'll go make myself a cup of tea just to kind of reconnect with myself internally. What are we doing this for, and what's the point? And, is it that we need to finish all of math by the end of the school year, by the end of May or June or whatever? Do we? No, we don't. Maybe we need to go back a little. Maybe we need to revisit some things. Maybe we need to just put it on hold for a few months. And those kinds of things are not often talked about. And they need to be, because it's not always going to look like we think it's going to look. And especially, like I say this all the time, if you are like me and you're coming out of the public school, not only did I go K through 12 through public school, and then I went on to get my associates, bachelor's, and master's, but then I went on to teach in the public school, not as a certified teacher, but I was a paraprofessional in several different areas with special needs and different things. And that kind of gets ingrained that certain things have to be done in a certain time period or they can't be done. And that is wrong. So we need to make sure we understand that God is guiding us, and let him guide us. Maybe we need to take a break and go on a walk, because maybe there's something really cool outside that he wants us to learn about or see or experience or what have you. Maybe we just need a breath, right? Like to take a break. So I do really feel strongly about that, about just homeschooling is an act of worship, and obeying that worship and following God and his plan. Yeah, that's a good one. So let's move on. She talks about the word rhema, which she says is the life in the word of God that makes it applicable right here in this very moment for this specific situation. She has a long section here that she talks about kind of the same thing like I was just speaking about. So I'll kind of skip over some of this, but again, get your own copy so you don't have to skip over it, and you can check and read through the whole thing, because it is very good. Yeah, Jamie Erickson has done a very good job on her book, so I do want to encourage you guys to purchase it as well. Okay. She talks here at the bottom of page 27. She references a book by Sally Clarkson, educating the wholehearted child. She says there are only 3 divinely established institutions: family, government, and the church. And it doesn't make sense to try to impose elements of an intuition of man, such as public school, upon an institution of God. Now, yeah, this brings me kind of to the book Dumbing Us Down. I really want to go through that book with you guys this year, and it talks a lot about that too. It's going to be a good one. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably get to that soon after this one. I do disagree. Right here where she says, homeschooling is not for every family, not even for every Christian family. I may get a lot of kickback, but I 100% believe that homeschooling is for every family. I think that that's what God wants for us, is to teach our children. And while there may be things you need to farm out, like having lessons in this with this other person who's more knowledgeable or this or that, but I think ultimately, at least this is my belief, and you can disagree if you want. I'm sure I'll get all the comments that do, but ultimately, I do feel like it's for everybody. And no, everybody's life and experiences won't be the same. They, I personally, I've done several videos on this. I personally know people who are single parents and they homeschool successfully. I personally know people who one parent works, they have 2 parents, but one works days and one works nights, and they still have a beautiful family relationship and they're homeschooling. I know people who own businesses and work from home and thus are able to homeschool. I know people who work full-time outside the home and in the evenings dedicate their evenings to homeschooling, or their weekends to homeschooling. I do think it can be done. We don't have a lot of money. We have 7 kids. We have 1 income. We don't have a lot of money. I don't hardly make any money from this YouTube channel. I just want to be really frank. I make maybe $5 a month, maybe 10. If I'm lucky, it takes forever to make any money. And that's okay, because I still do this channel because I want to encourage you guys that even if you don't have a lot of money, I talk a lot about thrift stores, using what you find, what God presents to you. And sometimes that's what God is doing. He's showing you you don't need the expensive curriculums and all the things. And you just don't. You don't. And so I think it can be done. Yes, it's always going to be hard. Yes, it will always be a sacrifice on some part of your life. But I do disagree with her that homeschooling is not for every family or even for every Christian family. I completely think it is for every family. I think that everybody could do it, and I think our lives and our world would be better. So off that soapbox, bring on all the comments. I won't have much to say because I've already said it all here, but I do feel like it is for everybody. At the bottom of that page 28, she says, she's talking about here how she would pray in the summer for God to give her a verse, specifically a verse that would help them that summer or that future school year, and how different ones gave her different things for that school year. And so she says the first year, and God led me to this exact same verse my first year of homeschooling as well. It is Deuteronomy 11:19. You shall teach them to your children, talking of them when you are sitting in your house, when you are walking by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. And she said, after reading that verse, I realized that one way or another, my children will be taught at all times. And then she says, more is caught than taught. Sometimes we think teaching in homeschool means a workbook, grading. It means all these things, and it doesn't. It doesn't always mean that. Math can be taught without a math book, especially elementary math. Reading can be taught with very simple things like just some letters and, very, very simple readers. You can find these things very easily at the dollar store. You can find them at thrift stores. You can find them at Goodwill, which is my all-time favorite. I find lots of things at Goodwills. I know not all Goodwills are great, but I find lots of things at the one near us. And sometimes I think to myself, wow, I wouldn't have thought to pick this up, but I'm going to grab it. Other times I think at home and I'm like, wow, I really wish we had this. And then I go to the store and it's there. And it's really cheap. And I'm thinking, what? Okay, if this is really the price they want for this, I'm taking it. And I'm blown away that God provides and God gives, and He leads us to different things. And other times I'll have something completely different planned. Like this past school year, I was totally going down this chemistry road where I was going to take the kids and we were going to do chemistry, and God provided a different way and a different route, and we are doing a bird study instead. So, that's where we are. So I don't know why or how or what God's plan is in the future, but that's where we're at. So that's what we're doing. The next page, I absolutely love this whole section. I'm going to kind of read through the whole part because I 100% agree with this, and I have heard this from other homeschool mamas, and I agree. I agree with the way she approaches this so much, and I disagree with other moms who go against this. So I'm going to read it out to you guys. Some would argue, okay, this is talking about public school. Some would argue that Christians are not to avoid the world, but to be the salt and light in it. I am confident and hopeful that all of my children will live out the gospel of those around them. And she goes into a little bit, I'm kind of skipping around. Again, get your own copy. She says, even so, God gave me 1 Corinthians 15:33 to remind me that my children's developing years, listen closely, their developing years need protection and guidance. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Slowly but surely, I can disciple my children toward discipling others. But it feels unlikely that my 5-year-old or my 9-year-old is going to turn the tide of a spiritually depraved environment, referring to the public school. My children have to learn to be faithful in little before I can expect their faithfulness in much. So this is referring to people who say, but we don't want to homeschool because we know there's lots of bad things in the public school, but our children are good and they're Christian and they need to be the light in that environment. As anybody else had friends or other people they know use that as their excuse, I would call it an excuse for not homeschooling their children. Yeah, I have. I know people who say this, and they say that's why we don't homeschool, because the schools need God too, and that's how we're going to get it there, is through our children. But 100%, your children need to have that growing time first before you can just send them to the wolves, okay? And if they don't, you're sending them to the wolves. I mean, let's just be honest. So she says, homeschooling offers me a unique and increased opportunity to provide for them. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit here, but I think you probably get the idea here that we need to make disciples of our children completely, wholeheartedly, give them the tools, the proofs, the apologetics that they need before we can just send them out. We need to be there to teach them. And you know what? The world agrees. They send children and they teach them, indoctrinate them in their ways before they send them into the world. Why would we send our children to those places and then expect them, when they're not really strong, they're going to be presented with a lot of false things? And yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one to consider. Yeah, bad company here. She talks about the bad company. Yeah, talking about the children who you don't really want kids leading kids, okay? You don't really want children who are sinful, unsaved, who don't know right from wrong to be trying to guide each other in the ways of the world and in the ways of right and wrong, even teenagers. Anyways, but we see it all the time, don't we? She says, kids need to be discipled by a good teacher before they themselves can become teachers. I cannot expect my first grader to be an influencer in the world at the public school or anywhere unless he is fully trained. Or until he is fully trained, rather. Because they won't be fully trained at first grade. They just won't. Kids can survive and even thrive in public schools, but they can also, I would change that can to will. They will also encounter influences that will cause them to stumble. She has can cause them. One day I will answer for the decisions I've made in the training of my children, and I hold that close. Yes, absolutely. She says on the next page, this is like a heartbreaker right here. All too soon, my kids will leave my home and be inundated with a culture that is directly opposed to God. They'll be fed lies by fire hose each and every day. That is so vivid. So vivid. Lies by fire hose. If you can just picture that, they're flooding at them, okay? Their only hope is found in the truth of God's word. The time I invest now at home will help fortify their faith before it is forged in a fire of persecution. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's any more to say. That's good. Maybe we should all hang that up and frame it on our walls, as a good reminder. But it is true. It's true. Next, she said she had doubts about, this is basically about socialization. She said Proverbs 13:20 was brought to her mind. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. The companions, this is a good sentence. This is on 31. The companions of a traditional classroom don't always choose to walk wisely. Can I really expect a pack of immature 7-year-olds to be the social and moral compass of my 7-year-old for the majority of each day? The socializing offered through homeschooling, on the other hand, allows my kids to be around many wise people of all ages. I will link below a whole video I did on socialization in homeschool. If you have some other concerns, questions, thoughts, fears, what have you, about that topic, I have a whole video where I have gone into this so clearly. But yeah, this kind of just summarizes it. But it is true. It's like the blind leading the blind. And we don't need that for our children. So we are going to wrap this up. We're almost to the end of this chapter. Why she loves homeschooling. Because of homeschooling, I can handpick a curriculum that is true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, and commendable. Yes, 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 yes. The things I want my children to think on all day long. Yes, absolutely. Beautiful. I would add to that list. Yeah, very good. Proverbs 2:6. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. It encourages me to not only to embrace this opportunity that I've been given to center my children's education on truth, but also to celebrate it. Even on the hard days, I can see homeschooling as a privilege because I've witnessed how he's used it as a conduit of wisdom for me and mine. Absolutely, 100%. And I have kiddos as young as 3 up to 14, and I can see in my 14-year-old, in my 12-year-old, the fruit of homeschooling. It's there. It's coming out. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, mamas. But it's true. There are days when they're younger, especially, that I'm just thinking, we're never, like, why am I bothering? And it's there. It's there. I've talked about this in many, many videos, but it's beautiful when you get there. Um, okay. While there is no one universally agreed upon Christian way to educate a child, God continues to use these summertime scriptures as arrows to point me to my good work. He does not withhold his will from me. He won't withhold it from you. If you ask for wisdom for your child's education, he will give it abundantly. I have done that many times. The last sentence of this chapter, here we go. What once looked like a coincidence will begin to show itself for what it's been all along, God's calling. Yes. Yes. If you are afraid, if you are struggling in homeschool, I am here to help you. I am happy to direct message me on YouTube, whichever. On Facebook is, I don't get on Instagram as often. Sometimes I miss those messages, but the others I do frequently, and I'm a normal mom. I am happy to help you. I am happy to help you, to encourage you, to give you guidance, whatever. And Jamie Erickson's book here is just so good. If you, like I said, if you don't have your own copy, I do encourage you to get it. How to Squash Doubt, Trust God, and Teach Your Child with Confidence. It's so good, guys. It's good. So, yeah, join us next week. We will go through chapter 3. It'll still be part of the fear section, which is the path to bravery. And then we'll have one more section in one more chapter in the fear section before we start with the struggle and then the solution. So stay tuned. Go through this with us, guys. Homeschool bravely. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.